April 17th, 1943, 22 ordered feet above Bremen, Germany. The B-24 Liberator shudders as flak bursts bloom in the thin gray air. Inside the aluminum fuselage, Staff Sergeant Joseph Red Callahan, waist gunner, grips the handles of his .50 caliber Brownings. The smell of cordite and cold oil mixes with oxygen from the hissing masks. Somewhere forward, 4 Pratt & Whitney R-1830 engines hammer in uneven rhythm, each vibration traveling through the bomber's skeleton and into Callahan's bones. Below them, the city burns. Callahan does not know where his airplane was born. He only knows it exists, that it is holding together. For now, under fire that could tear it apart in seconds. He does not know that less than a year earlier, this same aircraft design was still considered too complex to mass produce. He does not know that somewhere across the Atlantic, in the flat farmland of southeastern Michigan, men and women are learning how to build machines like this faster than the world has ever built anything before. A burst of flak rocks the bomber. Callahan stumbles, catches himself, and keeps firing. Back home, the war has already reached the factory floor. May 1940, Ypsilanti Township, Michigan. The ground is still soft with spring rain when Edsel Ford steps out of his car and looks across the fields. To the untrained eye, it is just farmland, rolling, unremarkable, quiet. But Edsel Ford is not looking at what is here. He is looking at what could be. Europe is burning. Poland is gone. France is collapsing. Britain stands alone. And in Washington, President Franklin D. Roosevelt is asking a question that will define the coming decade. Can America build fast enough to matter? The U.S. Army Air Corps wants bombers, not dozens, not hundreds, but tens of thousands. Aircraft manufacturers shake their heads. The Consolidated Aircraft Company's B-24 Liberator is powerful, long-ranged, and deadly. But it is also difficult. Too many parts, too many skilled hands, too many hours. Edsel Ford believes that problem sounds familiar. For 3 decades, Ford Motor Company has done one thing better than anyone on Earth: turn complexity into repetition. Automobiles that once took days to assemble now roll off lines in minutes. Ford sees no reason airplanes should be different. Others disagree. Airplanes are not cars. They require precision, hand-fitting, craftsmanship. Wings are not fenders. Rivets are not bolts. Generals and engineers warn him. You cannot build bombers like Model Ts. Edsel listens. Then he commits anyway. The land is purchased. Plans are drawn. And something unprecedented begins. By the winter of 1941, steel frames rise from the Michigan soil. The building stretches outward, section by section, until it defies easy description. When complete, the Willow Run plant will be more than a mile long under a single roof. A straight, artificial horizon of glass, steel, and concrete. Inside, engineers wrestle with a radical idea. Break the B-24 into thousands of repeatable tasks. Wings built in sections, fuselages divided into shells, wiring looms standardized. Even the Liberator's notoriously awkward. High-mounted Davis wing must be tamed for mass production. Mistakes come quickly. Early assemblies do not fit. Tolerances stack. Entire subassemblies are scrapped. Army inspectors reject plane after plane. Critics sharpen their knives. Newspapers whisper that Ford has overreached, that the automobile men are drowning in aluminum and arrogance. Then December 7th arrives, Pearl Harbor. The debate ends overnight. Orders flood in. Deadlines tighten. Failure is no longer embarrassing. It is unacceptable. The workforce explodes in size. Farmers, mechanics, secretaries, students, and thousands of women stream through Willow Run's doors. Many have never seen an airplane up close. Some have never held a rivet gun. Training happens on the move. As the line itself becomes the classroom, the noise is constant. Pneumatic drills chatter like machine guns. Rivets hammer home in metallic bursts. Overhead, cranes glide with wing sections slung beneath them like enormous silver fish. The smell of oil, sweat, and fresh aluminum fills the air. And slowly, the impossible begins to look routine. By 1942, incomplete Liberators crawl along the mile-long line on wheeled cradles. What enters as raw metal exits as a weapon of war. Nose turrets installed, bomb bays wired, engines mounted, control cables tensioned. Each station performs its task, again and again, shaving seconds, then minutes. From the process, Ford does not just change how bombers are built, he changes who builds them. Skill is embedded in the system. Precision is enforced by jigs, fixtures, and sequence. A worker may never understand the entire airplane, but the airplane understands them. Outside, the airfield expands, runways lengthen, test pilots wait. The first completed Willow Run B-24 lifts off in September 1942. It is not perfect. None of them are, but it flies, and more are coming. Inside the plant, supervisors begin timing the line. Not days, hours. The question is no longer, can it be done? The question is, how fast can they go? January 1943, Willow Run Assembly Line. Michigan. A stopwatch clicks in the hand of Charles Cast Iron Sorensen, Ford's legendary production chief. He stands on a raised platform above the line, coat collar turned up against the draft that never seems to stop inside the vast building. Sorensen does not look at the airplane as a machine of war. He looks at it as a flow problem. Below him, a B-24 Liberator inches forward on its cradle. Its fuselage skin is dull aluminum, unfinished, raw. Workers swarm it in practiced choreography. One installing control cables, another sealing seams, another guiding a wing section into position as an overhead crane hums. Sorensen watches the seconds bleed away. The Army wants more bombers. Losses over Europe are catastrophic. Entire crews vanish over Schweinfurt and Regensburg. Every delay here has a cost measured in lives thousands of miles away. The line is moving, but not fast enough. The problem is not effort, it is friction. At Willow Run, inefficiencies hide everywhere. A missing rivet gun, a misaligned jig, a worker forced to walk 20 yards for a tool, a subassembly arriving seconds too late, stalling everything behind it. Sorensen attacks each delay with ruthless focus. Stations are rearranged. Tool carts move closer. Tasks are split, then split again. One worker drills, another rivets, a third inspects. Nobody waits. Nobody wanders. The B-24 itself is redesigned. Not in combat capability, but in manufacturability. Parts are standardized, variations eliminated. If two components can be made identical, they are. If a task can be simplified, it is. Even if it offends traditional aircraft builders, Army inspectors bristle. This is not how airplanes are supposed to be made. Sorensen does not argue. He points to the stopwatch. The workforce adapts. By mid-1943, Willow Run employs more than 40 00 workers. Women make up nearly half. Many wear slacks and bandanas, their hair tied back from spinning machinery. They work 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, under lights that never go dark. Mistakes still happen, but fewer each week. A riveter named Eleanor Mitchell, 23 years old, can drive perfect rows by sound alone. She does not need to look. The pitch of the gun tells her when the rivet seats correctly. Down the line, Frank Kowalski, a former tool and die man, checks wing spars with a machinist's eye, rejecting flaws most people would never see. They are not building airplanes. They are feeding a system. Outside the plant, finished Liberators taxi one after another toward the runway. Test pilots run engines up to full power. Propellers blur. One by one, the bombers lift off, climbing over Michigan farmland, banking south toward modification centers, and eventually, the war. By the summer of 1943, Willow Run produces a bomber every 90 minutes. The number stuns Washington. It is still not enough. August 1943, Detroit, Michigan. President Franklin D. Roosevelt addresses the nation on the radio. His voice crackles through factory loudspeakers across the Midwest. This nation, he says, has become the arsenal of democracy. At Willow Run, workers pause only briefly. The line does not stop. It cannot. Across the Atlantic, the air war escalates. The 8th Air Force bleeds aircraft at a terrifying rate. Missions now push deeper into Germany. Losses climb. Demand for replacements becomes insatiable. Back at Willow Run, Sorensen sets a new goal. 1 bomber per hour. Engineers stare at him. Supervisors shake their heads. The math is unforgiving. There are limits to human speed. Limits to coordination. Sorensen acknowledges none of it. Find the waste, he says. It's always there. They do. Inspection stations are integrated directly into the line instead of placed at the end. Problems are caught instantly instead of compounding. Parts shortages are tracked hour by hour. Entire supply chains bend around Willow Run's schedule. Even the mile-long building is rethought. Shortcuts are cut through interior walls. Conveyor paths are straightened. Forklifts replace handcarts. Every movement is measured. The Liberator becomes less an aircraft and more a sequence, a rhythm. By early 1944, the line reaches a pace few thought possible. A B-24 emerges complete every 63 minutes. 1 airplane, every hour. The scale defies comprehension. In a single day, Willow Run produces more heavy bombers than entire countries managed in a year before the war. The factory no longer symbolizes industrial ambition. It embodies industrial domination. And far above Europe, men like Joseph Callahan climb into aluminum machines they did not see built, trusting that somewhere someone got it right. They have no idea how close the margins are, how thin the tolerance is, how many hands touched every inch of their aircraft. They only know that when the engines start, the bomber flies, and when it flies, the war continues. March 6, 1944. Ray F. Tybenham, England. Dawn creeps across the concrete as ground crews swarm the B-24s parked wingtip to wingtip. Frost glistens on aluminum skins stamped with faded stencils. Ford, Willow Run. A cold wind cuts across the field, carrying the smell of fuel and damp earth. Captain William Bill Hargreaves, aircraft commander of Lucky Lady, walks his pre-flight with a checklist folded in his gloved hand. He taps control surfaces, peers into the bomb bay, runs his fingers along rivet lines. The aircraft is barely weeks old. It has already crossed the Atlantic, been modified, and now waits to fly into the heart of Germany. Hargreaves trusts the machine, not because it is perfect, but because there are thousands just like it. That knowledge matters. In the briefing hut, the red string stretches deep into enemy territory. Berlin, the room goes silent. This mission will be different. Fighters will not escort them the entire way. Losses are expected. Replacement crews are already in training back home. Replacement aircraft are already rolling off assembly lines. War has become arithmetic, and Willow Run is one of the variables. By 1944, the factory's output reshapes strategy itself. Commanders no longer plan missions around aircraft scarcity. They plan around weather, targets, and timing, assuming losses will be replaced. This is new. In earlier wars, the destruction of a fleet could take years to recover from. Now, destruction is absorbed, processed, and answered by production curves. The enemy understands this too. German intelligence reports speak of American factories without limits. Reconnaissance photos show airfields refilled weeks after devastating raids. The Luftwaffe shoots down bombers and finds more arriving. The line does not stop. Back in Michigan, the tempo takes its toll. April 1944. Willow Run. Absentee boards fill quickly. Accidents happen. Fatigue dulls attention. Supervisors rotate crews. Enforce breaks. But pressure is relentless. The war waits for no one. Yet pride grows alongside exhaustion. Workers gather at lunch tables under posted charts, showing daily output. Numbers are circled in red. Records broken are celebrated with applause, then immediately replaced with higher targets. A bell rings each time a Liberator rolls off the line. Some workers stop to watch. Others do not look up. Another fuselage is already arriving at their station. For many, the war is no longer overseas. It is right in front of them, moving slowly on wheels. The impact spreads beyond the plant. Rail lines choke with aluminum shipments. Nearby towns swell with workers. Housing projects spring up overnight. Roads clog at shift changes. Willow Run becomes the gravitational center of a regional war economy. Even Ford's critics begin to fall silent. By mid-1944, the plant has produced thousands of B-24s, more than any other factory on Earth. The once radical idea of assembly line aircraft is now doctrine. Other plants adopt Ford's methods. Processes are copied, refined, scaled. The war machine multiplies itself. Over Germany, Captain Hargreaves's formation hits flak over the target. Black bursts pound the sky. One Liberator in the group takes a direct hit. Fire blooms along its wing. Parachutes appear. Some do not. Hargreaves clenches his jaw and holds course. Hours later, the survivors limp back to England. Mechanics count the holes. Intelligence tallies losses. And somewhere in Michigan, another bomber rolls off the line. The strategic reality is brutal. American industry can now replace aircraft faster than the enemy can destroy them. The balance tilts. The bombing campaign intensifies. Cities burn. Factories collapse. Rail networks are smashed. German production falters, not because of a single raid, but because the pressure never lets up. Willow Run is not a weapon in the traditional sense. It is something worse. It is a guarantee. By late 1944, the factory reaches its peak, a Liberator every 63 minutes. Day and night. Shifts blur. Seasons change outside the windows. Inside, the rhythm never does. Men and women who once built cars now build the instruments of strategic annihilation. They rarely see the results, but the results are unmistakable. December 24th, 1944, Willow Run Airfield, Michigan. Snow drifts across the runway as a freshly completed B-24 Liberator taxis through the gray afternoon. Its engines cough, then settle into a steady roar. Steam rises from exhaust stacks, vanishing into the winter air. Painted beneath the cockpit windows is a simple name: Home for Christmas. Inside the cockpit, a test pilot eases the throttles forward. The bomber lumbers, then gathers speed. For a moment it seems too heavy to fly. And then it lifts, wheels clearing the ground, disappearing into low clouds. Inside the factory, no one stops to watch. The line keeps moving. By the winter of 1944, the war is visibly turning. Allied armies have landed in France. Paris is free. German industry reels under sustained bombing. But the cost remains staggering. Crews are still lost. Bombers still fall. At Willow Run, the workers feel the weight of that reality more than ever. Letters arrive from the front. Some are grateful. Some are unfinished. Names once read aloud at roll call quietly stop appearing on mailing lists. A riveter recognizes a serial number from a newspaper photo. A foreman sees a Liberator he signed off on listed as missing in action. No one says much. There is no time. January 1945. Production begins to slow. Not because of failure, but because the need is changing. New aircraft types take priority. The B-29 dominates the Pacific. Jets loom on the horizon. Willow Run's great experiment has proven itself beyond question. In total, the plant will produce more than 600 B-24 Liberators, nearly half of all Liberators built during the war. No factory in history has ever produced a heavy bomber in such numbers. The assembly line that once shocked skeptics has become legend. Across the Atlantic, the air war grinds toward its end. Captain Bill Hargreaves survives his tour. His aircraft does not. Lucky Lady is written off after a crash landing in Belgium, riddled with damage but repairable elsewhere. Hargreaves watches another Willow Run bomber taxi into place and wonders, briefly, who built it. He never finds out. May 8th, 1945. Victory in Europe Day. At Willow Run, radios crackle with the announcement. Some workers cheer, others sit quietly. A few cry. Production halts for the first time in years. Not for maintenance, not for shortages, but because the war they were racing no longer demands it. The mile-long line goes silent. The absence of noise is almost unbearable. In the months that follow, Willow Run empties. Equipment is dismantled. Jigs are stored or scrapped. The building that once embodied total war production waits for a new purpose. Historians will later debate the morality of strategic bombing. They will argue over targets, tactics, and consequences. But none will dispute this. Willow Run changed what war could be. It proved that industrial capacity itself could become a decisive weapon. That victory could be engineered, timed, and repeated at scale. The men who flew the bombers saw only the mission ahead. The men and women who built them saw only the next station on the line. Together, knowingly or not, they rewrote the rules of modern warfare.